Constantinople, January 532. Can you imagine the scene? The air is thick with smoke. The acrid smell of burning timber clings to everything. The city is literally on fire. Half the imperial palace, the very heart of the known world, is already a smoldering ruin. Its grand halls are reduced to ash. And out in the vast roaring amphitheater of the Hippodrome, a seething mob has just dared to crown a new emperor. Justinian claims to rule the entire world by divine right and sheer ambition. But right now, he is shaking. It's not rage, it's a bone-deep tremor of fear. His gold thread slippers, usually a symbol of his authority, are packed. His imperial ship bobs impatiently in the harbor, a silent invitation to escape. In the smoke-filled room, every single one of his advisors, men sworn to him, is whispering the same desperate plea. Flee. The panic is a palpable thing, a beast clawing at the walls. Then one voice cuts through the chaos. It's calm but low and undeniably furious, a voice that demands attention. An empire that cannot survive the night does not deserve the dawn. That voice doesn't belong to a grizzled general or a scheming senator. It belongs to a woman, a former actress who once navigated the gritty back streets of Constantinople. Tonight, however, she is the empress, and before the sun rises, she will decide whether the mighty Byzantine Empire lives or dies. Stay with me, because you're not just going to hear about a historical figure. You're going to experience the exact electrifying speech she used to transform a council of quivering cowards into the men who saved the empire. And you'll discover why any history book that leaves her out is missing half the story. This isn't just history, it's a masterclass in leadership, born in the darkest hour. To understand the inferno, we have to rewind just 6 days. Let's call it the calm before the storm. Though in Constantinople, calm was always a relative term. It's the height of the chariot racing season. And these weren't your Sunday afternoon races. This was the ancient world's Super Bowl, World Series, and political rally all rolled into one. The Hippodrome, a colossal stadium, has been packed since dawn. Its stands are a riot of color, divided fiercely between the blues and the greens. These weren't just fan clubs. They were powerful, organized political factions. They had their own militias, their own neighborhoods, and their own deep-seated grievances. Imagine sports hooligans, but with legitimate political wings, capable of swaying elections, and as we're about to see, overthrowing governments. Races mean gambling. Big gambling. Gambling means debt, and debt means tempers. Those tempers have been simmering ever since Emperor Justinian decided to crack down hard on corruption within these very factions. He wanted order, but in doing so, he stirred a hornet's nest. The spark that ignites this powder keg comes on a Tuesday. 2 men, one a blue, the other a green, are at the gallows. They're condemned criminals from the emperor's anti-corruption sweep. The executioner pulls the lever, the ropes go taut, and they snap. Not once, but twice. It's an impossible twist of fate. In the superstitious climate of the 6th century, this was a sign from God. Instead of gratitude, these 2 men become instant martyrs. They are symbols of imperial overreach. By Wednesday, the factions, who usually hated each other, are chanting together. It's a chilling display of unity against a common enemy. Nika, Nika, conquer. This was no longer a cheer for their charioteers. This was a war cry, a demand for victory over the emperor himself. By Thursday, the chant is about regime change. The Nika Riots were no longer a spontaneous outburst. They were a coordinated insurrection. The riots quickly spiral into terrifying arson. The violence is designed to terrorize. The headquarters of the city prefect, the man responsible for order, are set ablaze. Public buildings, symbols of imperial authority, are targeted. The mob, now a roaring, unstoppable force, storms the prisons. They free every inmate, arming them with whatever they can steal: rusty swords, broken spears, even sharpened sticks. Chaos reigns supreme. Justinian tries the diplomatic approach. He offers concessions. He dismisses unpopular officials. He promises sweeping tax relief. But the mob isn't interested. Their answer is a defiant, audacious act. They declare a new emperor, not a powerful general, but Hypatius, a harmless old senator and nephew of the former emperor. He never asked for the job. He's plucked from his home, forced into the imperial purple, a bewildered puppet for the revolution. And then, with their new figurehead, they march on the palace. By Sunday night, the emperor's council is meeting in the pitch-black inner chambers of the great palace. Every outer room is either gutted by fire or under direct siege. The city is a war zone, and the imperial family is trapped. That is where we find them, at the absolute nadir of their power. And that is precisely where Theodora will make her unforgettable, empire-saving move. So let's step into that desperate, smoke-filled room. It's not a grand council chamber. This is a makeshift gathering in the deepest part of the palace. Oil lamps sputter, casting long, dancing shadows on terrified faces. Soot-smudged maps are unrolled on a scorched table. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, fear, and unwashed bodies. Guards keep their helmets on indoors. It's a grim acknowledgment that the ceiling might collapse at any moment. The very foundation of their world is crumbling. Justinian, his eyes red-rimmed from smoke and sleepless nights, finally breaks the silence. His voice is hoarse. "We still hold the harbor," he states. "The ships are ready. We can sail for Heraclea at first light, regroup in Anatolia, reclaim the capital later. It's a strategic retreat, not a surrender." He frames it as a calculated move, but the desperation in his tone is unmistakable. He's planning to run. One by one, every advisor agrees. They nod. They murmur their assent. Escape seems the only logical, survivable option. All except one. Theodora waits. She allows the whispers of agreement to die down. Then, with a slow, deliberate grace, she stands. The rich purple silk of her gown brushes softly against the grimy floor. Her posture is erect, regal, composed. And then she delivers the speech, the one that even Procopius, a historian who often tried to discredit her, felt compelled to copy word for word. He knew no one would believe such courage could come from a woman unless he presented her exact words. She begins by cutting through their self-deception. If the emperor runs, she says, if he abandons his throne and his people, he will never rule again. His legitimacy would be irrevocably shattered. Then she twists the knife. "Every man in this room," she declares, her voice low but piercing, "will be hunted down. You will be dragged back through these very streets, through the burning ruins, and executed in the hippodrome while that same mob cheers your demise. Exile," she spits the word like a curse, "is merely a polite way of saying slow death." The terrifying imagery hangs in the air, a cold slap of reality. Next, she flips the script on the gender expectations of their time. "You men," she says, her gaze sweeping over them, "you talk of fleeing as though it were strategy. I am merely a woman," she acknowledges, using their own prejudices against them. "But I know this. The purple cloth that drapes the throne makes the finest shroud. I will never remove it, Not while I still draw breath. I will die an empress, or I will not die at all. Finally, she lands the line that electrifies the room. Empires are not saved by those who run. They are saved by those who stay and fight for one more hour. Just one more hour. It's a call to immediate action, a demand for courage, and then she sits. The purple silk settles around her, a silent, powerful statement. Silence descends, not the silence of fear, but of shock, of a profound shift in perspective. Then Belisarius, the brilliant young general, straightens his posture. His eyes gleam with purpose. "We have troops in the palace armory," he says firmly. "Let's use them." Across the table, Mundus, the grizzled commander of the loyal barbarian mercenaries, cracks his knuckles. A slow, grim grin spreads across his face. Justinian, his eyes now infused with a new, fierce light, nods once. His decision is made. The plan to flee vanishes like smoke. Plan B, slaughter the rebels in the hippodrome before dawn, moves from unthinkable to inevitable. The Empress has spoken, and the Empire will fight. And that fight would begin immediately. Midnight. The city still burns, but a different kind of fire is about to be unleashed. The palace, moments ago a refuge for the terrified, is now a staging ground for a desperate counterattack. Belisarius leads his elite force of 500 veteran Bucellari through a hidden gate. These aren't just soldiers. They're battle-hardened professionals from the Persian frontier. They move like ghosts through the smoke-choked streets. Mundus, the formidable Germanic commander, takes his own contingent of fierce barbarian warriors along the main colonnade. They are the hammer to Belisarius's scalpel. And Narses, the unassuming eunuch, who will one day become one of history's greatest generals, plays his crucial role. He methodically locks down the hippodrome exits from the outside, sealing the fate of the thousands trapped within. No escape. Inside the hippodrome, the mob is drunk on victory. They are convinced the old emperor has fled, that their revolution is complete. Hypatius, their reluctant emperor, sits on the imperial bench, half dazed. The emperor's chain of office is draped awkwardly around his neck. He looks less like a monarch and more like a terrified hostage. The first wave of soldiers enters. The revelers dismiss it as another scuffle. But then Belisarius's men form their legendary shield walls. They advance, a relentless tide of spears. The blues and greens realize too late that these aren't the city watchmen they've been routing for days. These are veterans who know how to kill efficiently and without hesitation. The party turns into a massacre. Cheers turn to screams. The mob, disorganized and unprepared, is trapped. The exits are sealed. The slaughter is swift, brutal, and absolute. By the time the first rays of sun creep over the Bosporus, the sand of the arena is so utterly drenched in blood that chariots will race on blood-soaked ground for weeks to come. The stench of death will hang in the air for months. The casualties are staggering. Modern estimates hover near 30,000 souls. 30,000 lives extinguished in a single, brutal night. It was a horrific price, but one deemed necessary for survival. Order is restored. The rebellion is crushed. Hypatius, the unwilling emperor, is pulled from a pile of corpses, weeping hysterically. His pleas fall on deaf ears. He is executed at dusk, unceremoniously buried, and meticulously deleted from imperial records. So thoroughly erased that his own family would later pretend he died years earlier. Justinian, his face etched with trauma but infused with a new, steel-hard resolve, re-enters the palace. His gold-thread shoes are still packed, a silent testament to how close he came to flight. and beside him, walking with quiet triumph, is Theodora, the woman who, in the empire's darkest hour, had truly ruled by night. But her rule didn't stop when the sun came up. In fact, it was just beginning. The empress doesn't stop at merely saving the throne. Theodora now turns her formidable will towards shaping the future of the empire, and crucially, the future of its women. Within a single month of the riots, Theodora and Justinian embark on an ambitious project, a complete rewrite of the legal code. This would become known to history as the Corpus Juris Civilis. Within this work, Theodora's influence shines. Henceforth, a woman could own property in her own name. She could initiate divorce without her husband's consent. And, perhaps most astonishingly, she could testify in court, giving women a voice Roman law had denied them for a millennium. Her personal experience fueled her next project. She personally funds safe houses for girls sold into prostitution, providing refuge and education. She bankrolls this not from charity, but directly from the imperial treasury. This wasn't a gesture, it was a state-sponsored intervention, but she doesn't stop there. She forces through a law that sentences brothel keepers to death if they hire girls under 14. And in a move that reveals her sharp wit and unforgiving memory, she makes certain that the very first man executed under this new law is a former rival pimp from her own acting days. It's a chilling display of power, a reminder that the Empress never forgot where she came from. And then there's the rebuilding of the city. The old cathedral, the Hagia Sophia, had burned to the ground. Theodora persuades Justinian to build something bigger, grander, transcendent. A monument that would stand for centuries as a defiant declaration that the empire endures. Construction on the new Hagia Sophia begins in 532, less than 6 months after the city was almost destroyed. Its dome, a breathtaking architectural marvel, rises so high that when Justinian finally walks into the finished building, he reportedly whispers, "Solomon, I have surpassed thee." He says it, yes, but let's be clear. Theodora paid for half the bricks, and she supplied the immense political capital and sheer force of will required to keep the project moving, especially when the imperial treasury was empty. Her vision, her drive, truly built that dome. Her vision, her drive, her ability to make things happen against all odds, truly built that dome. But rebuilding the city was one thing. Theodora was also busy building a new kind of power for herself. Modern historians debate whether Theodora was officially co-regent. The paperwork says no. The reality says otherwise. She was an active, indispensable partner in governance, her influence most potent after dark. Her name appears on virtually every significant law for 21 years. Foreign envoys shrewdly addressed their correspondence not just to the most divine Justinian, but to Justinian and Theodora. They knew her approval was crucial. She holds private audiences at night. Court etiquette bars most male officials from the women's quarters, the gynecceum, during the day. This restriction, however, became her strategic advantage. These after-dark meetings are where the real decisions were made, where her political network operated away from prying eyes. She keeps a table in her private chambers covered with wax tablets, her own intelligence brief. On them are the names of every spy, every informant, every ambitious bishop, every disgruntled general. She maintains a vast network of eyes and ears across the empire, a shadowy intelligence apparatus that was vital statecraft. And when the devastating plague of Justinian hits in 541, Justinian himself falls gravely ill. The court descends into panic, but Theodora stays in the capital, unwavering. While her husband battles for his life, she effectively rules the empire. She signs edicts, commands troops, and ensures the vital grain ships keep arriving, preventing famine. This was not a co-regency in name, but it was absolutely one in action. The court gossips that she never sleeps. The truth is more poignant. She sleeps, yes, but only after dawn, when the urgent business of the empire has quieted. And often she sleeps not in a lavish bed, but on a simple mat beside the imperial seal, a silent sentinel until the next crisis. For Theodora, the empress who ruled by night, the empire simply did not wait for sunrise. Strip away the shimmering silk, the glittering mosaics, and what do you have? You have a primal story about decision-making under unimaginable pressure. This isn't just dusty history. It's a blueprint for navigating chaos. Every organization, every company, every team eventually faces its midnight moment. A product fails. Quarterly numbers crash. The mob on social media howls for heads. In these moments, what's the natural instinct? Leaders, just like Justinian's advisors, often look for the nearest exit. They pack their metaphorical bags. But someone in that room has to channel their inner Theodora. They have to stand up, cut through the panic, and force a different path. This means naming the stakes clearly and unequivocally. It means rejecting the false comfort of surrender. And most importantly, it means compelling the group to choose the braver path, to stand firm, to fight for one more hour. History has a funny way of remembering. It does not remember the people who left. It remembers the ones who stayed. It remembers the ones who spoke the uncomfortable truth when the building was burning down around them. Theodora's uncomfortable truth was simple but profound. Power is pointless if you are not willing to lose it for a principle. True leadership isn't about clinging to your position. It's about being willing to sacrifice everything for something greater than yourself. She wagered her life on that principle, and in doing so, she didn't just save an emperor, she won the Byzantine Empire another 1,000 years of shelf life. Her courage in that single, desperate night echoed through centuries. So, the next time you hear that one voice can't change history, I want you to remember January 532. Remember that smoke-filled room and the moment an actress turned empress looked a terrified emperor in the eye and essentially said, "Run if you like, I'm staying." The empire survived because she refused to board the boat. It's as simple and as profound as that. Can you think of another moment in history or your own life where a single speech turned disaster into dynasty? Where one person's courage shifted the entire trajectory of events? Drop your best example in the comments below. Let's give these night shift rulers, these unsung heroes who stepped up when the lights went out, the credit they deserve.